Hello everyone. My name is Brittany Lewis. I'm a professional graphic designer and illustrator, and Sundays is the day that I work on my dream project, the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, and of course today is no exception to that. So before we get into our live stream today, if you would do me a huge favor, if you like this kind of live stream or would like to support me in any way, shape, or form, please do hit the like button. I have a goal of reaching 1,000 subscribers, so liking the video pushes it out to more people so that we can get more subscribers and the channel can grow and so on and so forth. If you would like to own a piece of the art that I created, you like what you see as we watch, or as you guys watch me work on this project, be sure to check out the description below. And also there are links in the description to how to hire me for your project if you are interested in working with me. So I hope you guys are having a great week this week. I'm having a pretty good week, much better than it has been, so I'm really happy about that. I hope I'm coming through loud and clear. For you guys, if you can't hear me, let me know in the chat if you guys are around. If not, don't be afraid to say hey. I would love to know that you are there. So whether you're watching this live or the replay, I appreciate you for being here. Thank you so much. So we're going to pick back up with the 5 of Cups from the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. This is the first of the 5 cards that I am working on. I do have the 5 of Wands together for the most part. It's about 80% done in terms of like the sketch, so I guess I'll show you guys what that looks like. So just in case you missed it, Wednesdays I do a bring your own project where we co-work together. I'm typically working on the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, but that's just the kind of the space for me to work on whatever it is that I have going on at the time. And in that, I started the sketch the night before, and I finished the placement of the figures on Wednesday. And so leading up to this coming Wednesday, I'll be adding details and things like that. I wanted to create some tension with this particular card because it symbolizes disagreement. It symbolizes tension. It symbolizes debate. I had an initial idea of doing this as like a knot, but I discovered that another artist had did a knot sort of motif as her Ace of Swords. I think last live stream I kept calling it the Ace of Wands, but it is the Ace of Swords. And so because that I knew that someone else had done that particular style and image, I didn't necessarily want to repeat it or seem to be heavily influenced by it, even though I had come to the design independently and later found out that she actually had the same idea. So I actually kind of pulled on it. I used went through pixels, and I was thinking a lot about the knot and how I could express it in a very different way. Tug of War kind of came to mind, so I was like, well, maybe I could keep the original design and have some hands shown grasping each end of the knot, and of course each rope would represent a wand, and it kind of went from there. So as I was looking for references specifically for like a tug of war type of scene where people are sort of pulling on a rope, pulling on something, I came across a reference that I liked, and I'll actually show you guys what those look like. So I have all of the references for the next card pulled up so that I don't have to keep like going back and forth between pulling up new references and not. So I'll show you what that looks like. But I found the image of a group of kids who were like playing a modified tug of war game where they were all sort of pulling look like scarves that were tied together by like some really cheap twine or something like very fragile, so that I guess whoever breaks it first wins. I like the idea of that. And so instead of sort of copying the reference straight out, I wanted to kind of make it my own, of course, adding to, I guess I don't have them loaded. But anyway, adding to the tension of the scene, I added 2 figures who were sort of facing the opposite direction. So it feels like everyone's pulling in a very separate direction, so that we can create, again, that tension, that debate, that kind of thing. So my goal is to add details to their faces, or what parts of their faces that we can see. And I also kind of want to play around with the clothing. I have it, the clothes that these figures are wearing, drawn very much in line with the reference that I was using, or the references that I was using. But the idea of having this represent sort of the diaspora wars came to mind. So I may have each of these people dressed up in a very different cultural outfit to sort of represent that. I have not decided yet. I might just leave it as it is and kind of tighten things up. I don't know, but I'm very happy with the way that this picture is coming together. Very much happy with the tension that it feels. Very off center, very out of balance, in contrast to some of the images that we've created recently, which are very much in balance, which are very much illustrating stability and all of that. This feels very off kilter and very sort of off center, and I think that works with the meaning of this card. So I like the way it's coming together. I actually did the initial sketch in Procreate. You guys will hear me say that me and Procreate we have a little bit of a love-hate relationship. I don't hate it. For me, I don't have the patience to sit and like learn it. And so I use it primarily for sketching. But what I will say is that it was very easy for me to sort of do my measurements as I was like, measuring placements of the heads and doing the proportions and things like that in Procreate, because I was so close to the reference. Very similar to the way that I would work on like pencil and paper sketchbooks, or if I was drawing like a portrait from scratch, where I'm very close to the reference. So it's easy for me to get the proportions and things like that right, to get the accuracy in the poses, as opposed to doing that in Clip Studio Paint, which is what I was trying to do during my live stream. So it was very very easy for me to do that there. And so I'll give Procreate there. I sketched the heck out of stuff. I've done I've done logo design, like sketches in Procreate. I've done lots of tattoo designs in Procreate, just kind of playing around with it. In that respect, sketching is what I do in Procreate. But when it comes to like finalizing images and using some of the tools that I use in Clip Studio, I have not grasped just yet how to do that in that particular program. All right, so 5-in-1s. Now, as I was looking, I have not worked on this since last Sunday, and just with you guys, I didn't work on it further once I kind of walked away from it for the day. So when I came back to look at this, there are some parts of the background that are bothering me a little bit. So I want to tighten that up and fix it in the sketch, and then we'll make our adjustments in the flats, and then we'll move forward. So for me, not to say that symmetry is like a major part of this particular image, but the fact that the widths in the bookshelves are all very different is bothering me a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually turn off all of my color flat layers, and then I'm going to tighten up my sketch, and then we'll come back and make whatever adjustments we need to make to the flats, and then we'll move forward from there. My plan of action for this particular card is probably to work on the background first, so that's all of the objects in the background, and then from there I will move forward to the figure and kind of work my way from the back forward, or just kind of around the image as I see fit. So that is the goal for this particular card. I do not see it taking very long. I think had I worked on it and continued to work on it last Sunday, we would probably be about halfway done at this point. But I wanted to show you guys some part of the process. Like, I don't want to spoil it too much, or like do too much ahead of time, so that you guys can kind of see how it shapes up from beginning to end. Now, you guys didn't see the sketch process for this, but you did get a chance to see the flats. So I'm just going to turn all of that off. It looks like I left a layer out. I'm just going to turn all of this off so that I can get the bare bones sketch. And then I am actually going to put all of this into a folder, and I'll take it out of the folder when I'm ready to work on it. But I'm just going to put all this in a folder to get it out of the way for now. And then from there, we'll work on this background, right? All right, so I'm going to label this folder color. And I may or may not keep it again in this particular folder. I just kind of need it out the way for now. I'm going to raise the opacity for the sketch so we kind of see it as it is. Turn on my symmetry ruler, because this is what I was working with when it came time for me to create the background. And then I'll move forward. So again, I hope you guys are having a great week this week. So we are almost at 1,000 subscribers. So again, if you guys like these kinds of live streams, or you're curious about working as a digital artist and sort of making art in general, you just kind of like to see the live process, do me a huge favor and make sure that you're subscribed to this channel. Now, I do have some videos lined up. I saw another YouTuber that I used to watch more frequently, Roberto Blake, was saying that he was coming back to YouTube in a very aggressive way in terms of like making full-length videos. So I'm sort of in the process of doing that. I have to kind of get those full-length videos completed. But at a certain point, we'll have some more in-depth tutorials or some more exploration types of videos so that you guys can see something a little bit different. Again, I've had this sort of draw towards, working in traditional mediums. So we'll kind of work on that some. Excuse me. Now figure out how I'd like to show you guys that part of the process. Excuse me. Woo. Hey, TN lady, I see you there in the chat. I'm happy to see you. If you guys are here, don't be afraid to say hello. I would love to know again that you are there and that you are enjoying the live stream. All right, so because I'm using a symmetry ruler and I'm actually using a snap eraser, this is going to actually allow me to erase on one side and sort of make it appear on the other side. So I'm just going to take out some of this so that I can expand the width of these columns, because it's just bothering me that they're all different widths for no other reason than that. So I want to make sure that I get it together. Hey, 10 lady, there you go. I see you now. Let's see. And this probably shouldn't be brown. So let's tighten that up. And let's get that. So this looks about even, right? I think so. I'm going to turn off my symmetry ruler so I can kind of see. Yeah, that looks a little bit better, a little bit more like even. And then we'll turn it back on, and then what I'll do is do the same thing here in terms of making these columns wider, and then we'll get back to expanding and working on the flats and all of that. It really was bothering me. I was like, I think because I sketched this in a little bit of a hurry, so I was trying to like make sure I had it done for last Sunday stream. So I didn't really take a whole lot of time with the particulars in terms of like making sure that things were even and perfect with the sketch. I just kind of wanted to have the sketch done so that I could continue, you know, show you guys the part of the process in terms of like adding the flats and things like that. So there we go. I like that a little bit better. It was bothering me. Right? All right. So I'm going to turn that symmetry ruler back off. I'm going to collapse this folder, bring the opacity back down, and then turn on all of these. And what I should have did was just grouped all of this first and then just turned off the whole layer or the whole folder, but that's okay. We'll go one by one and turn everything back on, and then we'll get back to work. So again, I don't foresee this taking a long time. I do have a couple of shortcuts, and some of the aspects of this image are repeating. For instance, if I do one plate, then the second plate is done. If I do one of the vases, then the other is done. I just have to make a duplicate of it. And of course, the cups come from the two of cups, so I'm not necessarily redrawing elements for the most part. Like once I draw it once, then I'm good to go. So that's going to save us quite a bit of time when it comes to time to get it all together. All right, now here we go. We're going to turn this. There we go. Symmetry rulers back on, and then I'm going to fill in this information here and keep going. So again, this week we are streaming both horizontally and vertically. So if you guys are coming across this stream on your in the shorts feed, be sure to say hello. I'd love to know that you're there. Now, the disadvantage of watching this through the shorts feed is that you guys cannot see the camera, and you can't see like all of the things that I'm clicking on, but hopefully you guys can hear my voice very well if you're watching this through the shorts. But I would like to know how that's going. Sometimes I come across live streams in the shorts. Sometimes I'll click on it. Depends on what it is that's going on, if it seems interesting enough. Sometimes I'll just scroll by, but I'm just kind of curious about that particular feature because they let us know that we had access to that in the YouTube studio sphere. So if you're arriving here through those means, I would love to know that how that's going for you, like how that looks and all that. All right, so it looks like we have some more tweaking to do in our sketch. So we'll go back up here to our bookshelves, and I'm going to erase these extra lines, and then that'll kind of clean things up so that as I'm adding information and details and things like that, it'll show up the way that I need to show up. So again, yeah, I've been thinking about going back and doing some of those traditional medium sort of sketches, just drawing for the sake of drawing. It has been on my mind to do. I just have not made the time to do it yet. I guess I should, right? Because that seems to be what I am feeling called to do. So we'll get there at a certain point. I'm excited to show you guys just sort of like what that looks like. Maybe one of these days, I think I showed a glimpse of the 2017 sketchbook that I had. So maybe one of these days I'll show you guys a walkthrough of it. Again, I've seen sketchbooks lately where a lot of people's sketchbooks are like extra perfect, and you know, they have these finished drawings and they're all colored and painted and all of that. My sketchbook has a mix between, or this particular sketchbook has a mix between things that have been like completed in terms of like drawing with graphite and things that are just like thumbnails, right? Very similar to the way that I do my development sheets. Because anytime I'm like exploring an idea, rather than drawing it out completely, I'll kind of do thumbnails to figure out like placement of things. Sometimes I'll do color studies, but not so much in my sketchbooks. That is something that I would like to kind of get into, especially as we move forward with this project, doing color studies and kind of getting an idea ahead of time as to like what flats, what color I want my flats to be. I do all of that figuring as I'm creating the flats and as I'm also looking for references. But I see people do that in their sketchbooks, and I think it's pretty cool. I know it has to be time consuming, you know what I mean? I wonder if that adds pressure to the people who are keeping those sketchbooks where they're like super perfect and all of that. Mine certainly is not. I have another sketchbook that I was keeping around the same time, and at that time it was interesting because I would like freehand sketch these images, and then I would do like a Indian ink portrait most of the time, or a painting of whatever I had sketched. So like I have an Eartha Kitt portrait on this channel, you guys can go back and watch. And in that sketchbook, I also drew Eartha Kitt, but it was so inaccurate, you know what I mean? And then like the next day I was able to draw it exactly the way I wanted to. So I used, in that case, the sketchbook I used it for warm-ups. So I would kind of warm up and get an idea of the placement of things in terms of like the placement of the eyes and the nose and all of the parts of a portrait. And then I would come back and draw it much larger, take a lot more time and effort and intention in measuring out like the placement of aspects of the face, and it would look like night and day. So I always find that, I actually looked through that sketchbook recently, and I always find that very interesting because of how different, or how starkly different to me, the sketch is from the final product. But that one was a toned sketchbook, so in it I was able to sort of explore shadow and light sometimes, right? Sometimes I was just kind of drawing just for the sake of drawing. So maybe we'll do that one of these days. We'll do a sketchbook tour. I have not kept a sketchbook since then, though. I have not kept up with a sketchbook, I would say probably since 2017, 2018. Beyond that, whatever I sketch now, because I'm not exploring too much, I'll just kind of do as I'm working on it. So any of the sketches that I do for like the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, I'll thumbnail it, and then we'll just kind of work through the sketch behind the scenes before I present it to you guys to see me sort of flesh it out and add the flats and all that. So, but sketching is fun. It is something that I enjoy doing, especially when I'm out and about at different events and like going to parks and things like that. Sometimes it's a lot of fun to take my sketchbook and try to sort of draw the scenes. So I'll show you some of that. I'll show you guys some of what that looks like. And I do have a sketchbook, and I have like a whole mountain of supplies that I found. So maybe instead of like buying new art supplies, which is always the draw of being an artist, especially a traditional artist, we tend to hoard and like buy supplies we don't need and all of that. Maybe rather than buying some things, which is what I have been looking to do here lately, I'll just kind of explore using some of those old supplies, see what I can make with them since they're so old. I have, for instance, a set of water-soluble oils that are like 10 years old. Maybe we can see about creating something, or see if I can create something from those super old oils, especially since they're water-soluble. I'm really interested to see how well they've held up. Now, some of my acrylics that I have, because I haven't done as many acrylic paintings over the recent years as I have like in the past, some of that is still very much good to use. I just have to shake it up because it tends to separate. So maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll make a video of me using some of those old art supplies and see what I can kind of come up with. That'll give me a little bit of a break from the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, because this has consumed so much of my mind. I just kind of want to be able to create some art just for the sake of creating it. Probably will be portrait heavy. I definitely want to take some time to deliberately study landscapes. So that is something that I'll explore as well. Just sort of as I'm making my way through those art supplies. But I have been tempted to buy new things such as like gouache, which is something that I have not worked with maybe once. I think my very first painting that I ever did, my teacher told me it was a watercolor, but everyone who sees it, because it was so opaque, challenges me in saying that it must have been gouache. I honestly don't know what it was, but it is a very, I call it very opaque watercolor painting. It very well could be gouache. So I have not deliberately worked with gouache, I don't think, ever, aside from maybe that one account. But I really like the way that gouache looks. And because I'm very familiar with the way that acrylic works, I'm really kind of curious about, I've been thinking about buying some gouache and kind of trying gouache and just using that along with some of those old supplies to see what I can come up with. Now, what I am doing is sort of adding some light and tone from this sphere reference. I don't think I'll be able to get it exact because there's so much texture and there's so much sort of variation in color and light. And that's okay. I don't necessarily have to get it exact. I just kind of need it to read as what it is. So my goal is to get colors as close as I can in these spheres and in these shapes, but I'm not super duper concerned with it not looking like the reference, right? I want it to look as close as I can get to the reference, but outside of that, it's fine if it doesn't. These are props that we're putting on this bookshelf because the idea is the character of this particular story in this image is kind of consumed in grief, right? She's consumed with these spilled cups that are sort of in front of her, and that is where she's paying the bulk of her attention. Now, for you guys who have been with me for the last few cards, we worked on the Four of Cups before we started the Four of Wands. So last summer sometime, we worked on the Four of Cups. That relates to this in the fact that their attention is sort of outside of their attention is sort of very much focused on like what's in front of them, right, as opposed to like the things that are outside of their like current point of view. And so, but the thing about this particular card is that it leans more into grief and more into focus on loss and lack and all of the things. So in order for me to sort of emphasize that if all she has to do is change her perspective, I wanted to make sure that the background of this image is rich, or it feels rich, or it feels like wealth and all the shiny things that she can kind of have access to if she changes her point of view. So that is the case here. But with that, I'm just using these references, right? So I have this for those of you who may be watching it through the shorts preview, on the full screen, I have the reference here. So we have a reference of like a abstract, I guess like a solar system, but it's like a sphere, a collection of spheres. So I don't have to necessarily get this to be exactly this. Like I don't necessarily have to paint exactly as I'm seeing, just as close as I can get it, right? So that it reads as something that, could be considered treasure for this person who is so consumed with grief. Again, this card invites a change of perspective, invites a sort of change in atmosphere. And I wanted to illustrate that by having a person kneeling below, and all again she has to do is stand up to see all of the wealth and all of the riches that she has available to her. It's all available to her, right? All she has to do is stand up and change her point of view. Grief is like that sometimes, I would imagine, right? I imagine sometimes it's so consuming that it's difficult to see it outside, whether you're grieving like a relationship or a person or a life that you might have wanted to live and maybe you didn't get a chance to live it yet, or whatever the case is. Sometimes it can be all consuming to kind of get caught up in what life should look like, right? And we forget about the possibility of creating something brand new, something different that we can kind of make our own and live beyond that moment of sadness. So that is what I want to express in this particular card. Again, I'm not so much reaching for perfection, and I'm usually not at this point in the cards, especially for something like this, as abstract as it is. I just kind of want to get light and shadow where it is so it looks like a three-dimensional object. So for the new year, I hope you guys have started working towards your goals. I hope that you have decided what that looks like for you and what success looks like for you as we move forward. I'll be the first one to tell you that sometimes I don't know what I'm doing, right? And so if you feel like you don't know what you're doing or where to go from here, from wherever your current circumstance is, that's perfectly okay. That's perfectly valid. I think the main thing is to make a decision as to what it is that you want in life, and then make baby steps if that's what it takes. Make baby steps towards those goals, or towards getting the information you need to move forward, putting yourself out there, letting people know that you need help if you need help. right? Because last week we talked a little bit about sometimes expecting people to kind of read our minds, right? Especially if you're the type who's always sort of the backbone of your friend group or of your family situation, and people usually come to you for advice and all of that. Sometimes it can be very difficult for us as the person who's doing that to realize that not everyone shares that ability to do that, and not everyone has the time or the sort of not foresight, but sort of the just time to focus on your problems. So sometimes we have to, be the one to tell others when we need help. So I hope that if you are one of those types of people who are or needing help and are afraid to speak up, I'm hoping that you're gaining the courage to do so and finding the help that you need. And I hope for those of you who have had dreams that you sort of procrastinated on and maybe felt unworthy of, or felt intimidated by, I hope that you guys have made time and effort to sort of start to pursue those dreams, adjust your sense of self-worth so that you can go after those things, and then take some action, right? Getting into some routines, changing up old habits, letting go of things that are no longer serving you. I hope that you are all sort of, if that's what you need in your life, I hope that you are sort of getting to that point in your life. All right, I'm going to switch up my brush to a flat round brush here. And the reason I'm doing that is because I think I'll be able to cover a little bit more ground, and then I can add texture on top of it a little bit later. I just need to put in color faster, right? And sometimes with a regular sort of flat brush, it's easier for me to do that. And I'm color picking from my reference, right? So I'm not sitting here trying to figure out the perfect shade of gold or anything like that. When I was searching for references, and typically when I do search for references, I like to get as close to something that I like as possible, so that I don't have to change things or worry about things like color, right? I don't have to worry about that because the reference looks the way that I want it to look. So we'll work from there. And then I'm going back and forth between my brush and my smudge tool to sort of move around the color, move around the light and shadow and things like that, so that I can get the effects that I'm after. So I'm grabbing a smudge brush that's called Frost. And I believe I got this smudge brush from the artist Eric Anthony. I got quite a few of his brushes, as well as brushes from Devin Kurtz. So for you guys who are wondering, I am working in Clip Studio Paint. I don't know that I've mentioned that in a while. I work in Clip Studio Paint. And this program to me is the closest approximation that I've had to Photoshop, which is the program I used to do a lot of my digital work in. It's the closest I found to it in terms of the way that it behaves, in terms of like the shortcuts and things like that. Of course, it does have a learning curve, I think, as most programs do. But it is a pretty solid program. And I'm working in version 1. I believe they're on version 4 right now. So with every version, there is of course, an upgrade to the program. And I think in the probably the one thing that will probably make me upgrade is the 3D models, because I do use those quite a bit. If I'm not mistaken, the new 3D models allow you to see sort of eye placement, which is nice. I don't know that I need that necessarily, because I don't want to rely too heavily or sort of get out of practice with knowing where things are on the face, which I'm able to sort of do and have practice in, with the way that things are now. But they do have some really neat features in the newer versions of Clip Studio, but I do work in an older version. The only issue I've had with it recently is that it will crash, or it has crashed sort of the bigger your file is. And it might just be my computer, not necessarily the program itself. But the bigger the file is, the slower it can be, right? So it'll lag and go through all of that. But overall, I would say this is a pretty solid program, and I do enjoy drawing in it. So again, I'm just sort of picking up color from my references, and then I'll just kind of, put it down where it look like it goes. Pretty much just drawing as close to what I see as possible without necessarily worrying about it being perfect. I'm not really interested in being perfect, just close. That's all. Just a little bit close, right? And again, I want to make sure that this background looks rich. I want it to look very shiny and very sort of like possibility, right? So again, this image focuses a lot on grief and sort of focusing on the negative, as opposed to standing up and adjusting the point of view so that our main character can kind of see more about what is available to her as opposed to what she is used to or what she's sort of the mistakes that she's made. In this case, it looks like she's probably responsible for spilling these cups of wine, right? And so I want her to look beyond those mistakes and see that there are 2 more cups on the counter along with other things that may enhance her life or her sense of worth or her sense of self. So that is where we are. Again, I hope you guys have had a great week. So whether you're watching this live or the replay, whether you're watching this through my channel or through the shorts panel, I hope that you guys are having a great Sunday afternoon. And I hope that next week is kind to you, or you're kind to yourself, I should say. Hope that y'all are kind to yourself and spending time sort of working on those dreams, working on those goals. I am a person who I don't necessarily buy into like the New Year's resolution hype. I think a lot of times we get, because it's New Year, right? Or we look at it as a New Year, January 1st. It's easy to say, okay, this is the time for new beginnings. And then we'll get sort of excited about things. And then a lot of times before February comes, we've sort of let go of those goals and dreams and have, just found ourselves back to the way that things were. So I am the person or of the mind that when you have a goal, work towards that goal when it comes up, right? Whether it is you start in December 29th, right? Or January the 16th or the 18th if you're starting today. Start whenever you have that in your mind and in your spirit to do, and then move forward. But also work within who you are. Right? Sometimes we kind of get into the hype of feeling like we have to keep up with people that we see online. We have to keep up with that facade because a lot of it is tailored to show exactly what they want us to see. Whoever that person is that's sharing their life, they're only showing us what they want us to see, right? So it's easy to look very put together, very disciplined, very, alpha or whatever the case is, right? It's very easy to sort of paint a picture of whatever that tailored image is, right? But if you know that you yourself have trouble with like staying disciplined, have trouble with like managing tasks and things like that, work within what you can do. Don't worry about what the internet says. Don't worry about what you see other people do. Work within your own strengths and work within your own weaknesses. Work on those weaknesses as well. So for instance, if you know that you have trouble staying the course when you have a goal, break those goals into bite-sized pieces, right? It's much easier to navigate and it's much easier to sort of stay on track when you have smaller goals as opposed to trying to tackle like these huge ambitious goals and you know that you have a history of, kind of quitting halfway through or losing motivation or relying too heavily on motivation, which a lot of times is the case. It is very important to know that motivation is a fleeting sort of thing. So you have to sort of train yourself to be disciplined in whatever it is that you're doing. But don't put so much pressure on yourself that you're trying to change into a complete person overnight. Give yourself grace and give yourself time to be able to work within your own strengths and your own weaknesses. So do that. So for me, I used to have a trouble with consistency. I used to have real big trouble with consistency. I would get extremely excited about things and I would start them right then. I still had to kind of keep hold of that, still start whenever, but I would get extremely ambitious, right? Or like have these grand ideas. I would jump in and then as soon as the first obstacle would hit, I'd quit. That's a reality, right? Or I would be inconsistent. Like I would get bored or whatever the case is. And then I would just kind of move on. And then, it's like what happened to that goal that you had? So this project for me helped a lot in that, right? So because I am publicly putting this out and I know that there are people who are waiting on it, putting this into practice kind of has helped that. But also doing things outside of whatever those goals were that are completely unrelated helped me with consistency. So I have things that I do every single day for the sake of practicing being consistent, right? And practicing being disciplined in just, like I said, unrelated things, right? For example, I do Spanish every single day. I think I'm at a streak of 800 and I'm gonna tell you, hold on. I have a 861 day streak in Spanish. That is something that I do every single day, right? That helps me stay consistent. So even on those days where I'm wishing that I am able to meditate consistently or like journal consistently or whatever the case is, and I'm not able to kind of keep up with those, doing Spanish every single day helps me stay consistent in some part of my life, because the way that you do one thing is the way that you'll do all things. So that is my act of practicing being consistent, right? There are other things that you can do. For instance, me streaming twice a week is a way that I practice being consistent. I stream on Sundays and I work on my dream project, the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, and I stream on Wednesdays, usually also working on the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. And that helps me to stay consistent. It also helps in other goals because it helps me to complete these cards a lot faster than when I was kind of working on them willy-nilly here and there. And I would have family members, kind of hold me to it. Like, when you go work on your cards, or what's going on with that, right? And so doing it publicly and doing it live, right, helps me to kind of hold myself accountable and stay consistent. So that is how I practice that thing. Now, whatever your flaw is, right, whatever aspect of your life that you would like to improve, do something that helps you practice that skill, but it's unrelated to the larger goal, if that makes sense. So for instance, Spanish has absolutely nothing to do with the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, right? But again, it is my way of practicing being consistent. Making my bed every day has absolutely nothing to do with being consistent at the gym, but it does help me practice the skill of being consistent, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. So that's kind of how you have to approach it. If you have something that you want to accomplish and you know that is going to require you to be somewhat different from the way that you are used to being, do something unrelated to that goal that helps you practice that skill that you need to improve, right? For me, again, I used to have a whole lot of trouble with being consistent, right? I would have all of these ideas and goals, and I would start them, but I wouldn't finish them. Or it would take me years to get back around to finishing them. Or I would like easily sort of give up because I'd hit a snag or a roadblock. So doing other things helps me in that aspect, right? It helps me to form a routine. It helps me to be better. And of course, my discipline has improved in that way because I have deliberately practiced it in other ways, right? So it doesn't necessarily directly affect the bigger goal, but it does sort of help me practice that skill that I needed to hone in on and develop. So I hope that makes sense, right? So if you know that is who you are, or you know that you have some things that you need to work on as you're setting up your goal. Hey, Montreal, I'm happy to see you. If you have some goals and things like that you want to work on, and you know that there are some parts of you that may need help, sometimes you have to kind of do a sidestep in order to learn how to improve in those areas of your life, and it'll affect the thing that you're actually trying to accomplish. So again, I hope you guys in the chat are doing well. I'm happy to see you all, both Montreal and T and Lady. I'm glad to see y'all. So I think it's it auto-save pretty quickly. So when we're in the beginning of a picture, the auto-save function is pretty fast, right? But it's the more information we lay on these files and the bigger these files get, the longer it'll take. But I have not showed you guys the Cosmic Gateways Tarot in a while. So here in a bit, I'll show you what that looks like, just as a reminder so you guys can see how far we've come. So I've completed 42 cards, right? I have 42 cards complete. I have 36 left to do. So my goal for this year is to complete 15. The biggest or the largest amount that I've done, and I tallied them all, right? I think I got it on my desk somewhere. I tallied them all. The most cards I've done in a year was 14 in the year. I think it was 2021. I did 14 cards. Where is it? I did 14 cards. So I know I can get 15 done, especially considering that I'm doing them 2 at a time, right? So if I can get 18 done, which would be awesome, right? If I can get 18 cards done, then that means I'll only have 18 to do next year. So we'll be kind of wrapping this thing up pretty closely and pretty soon. Now there's been some debate I saw, and I was meaning to talk to y'all about this, right? Last week or so, there was this huge sort of controversy about a person who was trying to hire someone to illustrate her tarot deck, right? And I think that her post was created out of just not knowing. Sometimes when people do that, they may not be taken as seriously, because I think sometimes we take for granted what we as artists know, or we as whatever profession you are know, as opposed to the people who are outside of that profession. So sometimes it is easy for us to say, well, you should know better, but I don't think she knew, right? So this person wanted to hire someone to do her tarot deck, and the tarot deck was going to be 78 cards. Of course, most tarot decks are. And I think she was quoted like $13,000 to do the deck. And her post, and she put up two. The first one, the one that I read was, I was like, okay, that didn't sound too bad. But someone screenshotted her original post, and it sounded like it was like, oh, that's way too much, this, that, and the third. All right. So let's put into perspective the amount of work that it takes to do a tarot deck. First of all, there are to be 79 illustrations. Even in the 78 card deck, there are 79 illustrations. That means that you have 78 illustrations plus the background, the back of the card, right? So each back has sort of like a pattern design or an illustration or whatever you want to do, but you have to do a design for the back. So all in all, that's 79 illustrations. Now, some people illustrate digitally, some people do paintings, some people do illustrations to create the cards. You know, there's all kinds of different ways for you to illustrate or paint or create a picture. But consider this 79 paintings, right? And some of those paintings have full out fleshed out backgrounds. Some of them have multiple characters, like our Five of Wands. The Five of Wands has multiple characters. It has 5 people pulling, and so there's 5 faces plus a background for that one card. Now, if we want to take into consideration the last card that I completed, that was 70 hours. So the Four of Wands, which was the couple that was jumping the broom and the 3 pillars in the background with the lights and the broom with the lights, that took me about 70 hours spread out over 4 months in time, right? To do one card. They don't all take 70 hours, you know, they don't all take 4 months to complete, but that is a lot of work. So we have 79 illustrations, plus the graphic design that goes with that, choosing your border, choosing your words, the packaging that goes with that, choosing what to illustrate, if you're going to illustrate anything new for the packaging, or how you have to get all that laid out, right? Yes, so you're laying out your packaging, you're designing your packaging. And there's also a book that goes with it. For most people, they have a little guidebook. Some decks don't have books, but the majority of them do. So you have a book that has to be laid out, a cover for the book that has to be created, and then all of that has to be print ready and ready to go for your printers. That is a lot of work, right? So for the young lady who was saying that $13,000 was too much, for I think each card, let's see, that's 13,000 divided by 79 just for the illustrations, right? So that's about $165 per image for 78 pictures, right? So that's not a lot of money. And once we break that down, it doesn't even meet minimum wage. And usually on average, they take about 2 to 5 years. Now mine is a little bit of an exception because it is taking a lot longer than 2 to 5 years. But on average, they take about 2 to 5 years to complete. I think some of the discourse was like, well, it'll at least take you 78 days. No, it takes way longer than 78 days to put together a tarot deck. So I think because there's not a lot of talk about money, because so many of us as artists are very uncomfortable talking about money and uncomfortable sharing the process, and some people's egos are in the way where they don't feel like they have to share the process, and you know, all of these moving pieces and parts are taking place. It's easy for someone to say, oh my goodness, $13,000 is a lot. And for some people, that is a lot of money, right? To invest in a single project. But without knowing exactly what all goes into it, it's very easy to dismiss it and feel like, oh, they're just charging that because they can. $13,000 isn't half of what I would charge to do this for someone else, right? It's not half. That would probably be like one deposit, you know, one of a couple, right? Just because of the sheer amount of work that goes into each individual card. Now, add to that, I'm doing this for myself, right? So I'm doing this because this is a project that I've wanted to do for a very long time. So I'm only contending with myself, right? I'm only having to have conversations with myself when it comes to trying to figure out the imagery and the symbolism, and, you know, how long things are going to take and what all I should include and how detailed each card should be. But take into consideration also, if I'm doing this from someone else, then I have to take direction from someone else. which means there's a lot more time involved as well, right? So it becomes more of a collaborative effort where let's say I'm partnering with someone who's writing the book for this. So we still have to communicate, which adds time to those 2 to 5 years that it might take to do this particular project. So I think a lot of that kind of comes down to us as artists being very honest about how long things take. Now, of course, there are tools like that. I call it a tool. Tools like the AI, generative AI thing, which I don't necessarily agree with at all. I think that I think that I can see why people would go with that, especially for people who may not have access to more than $13,000 for a personal project. I get it, right? I don't agree with it, but I do get it. I completely understand. So you have that. So it becomes very important, I think, that us as artists sort of be very upfront about and realistic about, or help people see what all it takes to complete the projects that they have in mind. Now, tarot decks are hugely popular, right? Lots and lots of people wish to have them. Same as apps. I would say the same thing goes with apps. So, for instance, there's the Labyrinthos app, which is a sort of cartomancy learning platform. So for someone who has their own tarot deck, going the app route may seem very feasible because that one is such a successful app. But apps cost lots of money, right? So it can become very disheartening if you feel like, oh goodness, I can see myself doing that, and then you find out the cost of things. It can be a little bit discouraging. So I understand that person's point of view, but again, I think that a lot of that I think a lot of the burden kind of comes down to us as artists being very transparent about how much stuff costs, right? How much how long things take, what all is involved, being open and honest, and then of course sharing the process of creating these large projects so that people can sort of begin to respect or understand the value of those things, right? So I think we sort of shoulder quite a bit of the burden on that. But I thought that was a really, really interesting conversation that was being had. And folks was beating her up. Like she was catching hell about it. Because I think a lot of it was just her initial attitude, which I didn't see the initial post. Actually, I didn't see her original post at all. I kind of saw someone, or not at all, but I didn't see it at first. I saw more of the commentary about it, and then I came across her actual post, and I was like, okay, well, that's fair. She don't have $13,000 to spend on a single project. That's okay. But I think that what she found out was just how much was involved in that particular kind of project that she was trying to create, and why maybe she needed to adjust her expectations in expecting to pay a whole lot more than $13,000. Now, of course, there's always going to be artists and service providers who will do things cheaper and all of that, but you will always get what you pay for. And anytime you have those people that are like, oh, this artist ghosted me, or this person did this and it was wrong and this and the third, more often than not, they didn't pay a whole lot for those services, right? So you get what you pay for. So what I'm doing again is just kind of going back and forth on this sphere. I am just again laying down light and shadow, not doing a whole lot. Just adding in color where I see fit, and not necessarily going for exact, because again, these are little background spheres, so you're not even going to see this very much. But I do want it to look somewhat close to what it is that I'm trying to accomplish here, so that I can come back and or zoom out and see how it looks. So let's do that real quick. Let's zoom out and kind of see. This is fun. Painting with the texture and the chalk brush does remind me a lot of painting with pastels, so it looks nice, and I think it adds, ooh, that's really nice. Now I guess the thing that I have to do, and I got this mirror on, the thing that I have to sort of do and keep in mind is that I want to make sure that this isn't too realistic, or at least make sure that everything else matches it, right? So as I'm adding these realistic elements, I want to make sure that the lady looks as realistic, the chairs and things like that look as realistic as the elements that we're adding to the background. But again, for those of you who have not seen this sketch is, or this card is, a card of grief, right? So I'll show you for those of you who are watching it on the regular horizontal platform. This card is about grief. This card that I've drawn demonstrates a person who is kneeling below all of these treasures, right? So she's very much focused on the mistake that she's made. She's focused on these 3 cups that are spilled over. That is where her attention is. But if she changes her perspective if she just stands up, right, she'll see that she has two perfectly good cups that she can still use, and then she has all of this treasure behind her. Now, some of these items on the bookshelves represent different things. For instance, the globe, or sort of the spheres that I am creating, represents sort of possibility in different universes and different planes of existence. We have the fish, which represents good fortune. We have a fertility doll, which represents, of course, fertility and creativity and moving forward. We have a Buddha, which of course represents peace. So she has all of these elements that she will have access to if she shifts her perspective. Now, in the original card, which is created by Pamela Coleman Smith, we have a standing figure, so he's already standing up. But again, his focus is on these three spilled cups to his left hand side, and those are sort of knocked over. There's a river in front of him, there's a bridge and a town out to the distance, and there's a path to his right behind him where there are two new cups in the path that leads to that bridge and those possibilities in the background. But his attention is in those cups, right? So he's paying much more attention to the cups and the mistake that he's made, the circumstance that has happened, the fallen items in his presence, as opposed to the two things that he immediately has access to, which is the two other cups and the possibility to more cups and to more treasure and to more possibility across the bridge. So I wanted to translate that slightly different for the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. Anytime I am working on cards for this, of course there's going to be some overlap. That's just sort of the nature of it. And because this is based on the Rider-Waite-Smith deck illustrated by Pamela Coleman Smith, there's going to be some overlap. That's just part of the sort of project, part of the scope of the project. There's going to be overlap, and you may even see overlap from deck to deck, right? So you may see things that you may have noticed in other decks. Such as, I think I had the Knight of Wands I created, which was based on the Never Ending Story, right? Specifically, when I think it was Atreyu came up to the oracles, which were the two big statues, and he had to kind of face his fear and run through it and get whatever information he needed. That is what that card was based on. So when I showed that card and when I finished that card, someone pointed out that there was another deck that had a similar concept, right? So there's going to be overlap. But primarily my goal is to try to find different ways to illustrate similar motifs and similar stories. So anytime I am developing the cards, which I try to do in sets of 4, or have been since the Queen, since I developed the Queens. I've been trying to work on them in sets of 4. What I will try to do is challenge myself to figure out a new way to express those older ideas, right? Some of the symbolism will be the same. I know with Strength that the setup of that card is very similar or reminiscent to the original Strength card. Whereas things like the Magician, which features two sort of mirrored versions of the Magician. One is, they're both, depending on the orientation of the card, they're both standing upright, but their hands are placed in a as above so below position if you're looking at it upright. But they are, instead of having one figure, you have two, and they both represent two aspects of the Magician. So you have sort of the magical creator, the alchemist in that, and then if you turn it upside down, you have the trickster being that is often associated with the reversed Magician. So again, there is overlap, but for the most part, I try to sort of challenge myself to illustrate these images, illustrate the motifs, think about the cards in a slightly different way, in a slightly more realistic way, right? Especially for the times that we're living in, so that I can create new stories. And each of these cards in the minor arcana lean very, very heavily into visual storytelling. Now that's not so much of not something that I lean too much into with the major arcanas. I think those are archetypes and they look like archetypes. But as we get into these minors, dealing with mundane situations, dealing with just sort of everyday life, I want to challenge myself to sort of find different ways to think about things. Now, when all else fails and I get stuck, I can always sort of make my own version of the original Rider-Waite-Smith card. But again, I do try to challenge myself to do something somewhat new, somewhat unique that also matches this particular deck. So in this deck, I wanted to lean into Afrofuturism. I also wanted to lean into different aspects of the African diaspora across the world. So there's always, you're going to see different symbols throughout. Lots of research goes into each card. Lots of research goes into the motifs and sort of the backstory so that I can express exactly what it is that I want to express in a very knowledgeable way, right? So I don't want to just put stuff in because it looks good. I want to understand exactly why I'm making these choices so that when it comes time to talk about it, right, I could be about it. I could tell you exactly why I made certain decisions. Now, one thing that does come up, because I have, very strong spiritual practices, sometimes I'll have things come up that I feel like things are coming through me, right? So I think that happens a lot to artists. Not just me, I ain't special or anything like that. But I think a lot of times what happens is that we get into this sort of flow of things and ideas will come through us and it will articulate them and create whatever the image is that we're creating. So a lot of times that happens. A great example of this, right? So I was working on the Page of Cups. And in the Page of Cups, I wanted my page to discover Aladdin's lamp, right? So I wanted it to be somewhat similar to Aladdin in story. I wanted it to be very much him discovering this sort of magical item that he could rub on, right? And we can go two different ways. It could be the Disney version of him rubbing this and finding a benevolent genie, or he could come across a trickster or a jinn, right? And so I leaned into that for whatever reason. Like every day I was working on it, I was telling myself more and more information and adding more and more bits to the backstory of this particular card. All the while, and I don't know why Aladdin was on my mind, right? Aladdin was on my mind too. I was like, oh, this will be great, right? And then it came to the realization, I was like, oh, this is my granddad. So my granddad's name was Aladdin, which could also be pronounced Aladdin. That was his name, Aladdin. So I was like, oh, okay, so this is my granddad coming through this card. And so that happens, right? I don't know if that's woo-woo for some of you guys. Maybe that sounds a little bit strange, or maybe that sounds like something that you have not heard before, but that happens and has happened quite a lot as I have created the cards for this particular project. So in that regard, I have to have patience with myself because I feel like I am doing something that I am supposed to do, if that makes sense. I have not gotten tired of this project yet. I have not had one day where I was like, I do not want to work on. I have not experienced that, right? Where I've been like, well, maybe I don't want to work on this. I want to work on such and such and so and so. Now, I have gotten stuck to the point where I've had to stop working on it just because that part of it is frustrating, not being able to figure out how to move forward in like developing some of the cards. But I have not yet experienced I do not want to do this, right? I've done that with client work. I've experienced plenty of that with client work where it's like, man, I don't want to work on this cover, or I don't want to work on this illustration, or whatever the case is. I have not had that experience with this project, and I feel compelled to do it. Even on the year that I had only had one card done, which was 2023. The reason that I didn't work on it further is because I just was busy with other people's projects, right? So I allow myself to be inspired however inspiration comes. I am always sort of speaking affirmations to the point of, I know that I'm always going to be inspired to do this. I know that it's going to always be easy for me to figure out what to do. That kind of helps me move forward in it, even in those days where I'm frustrated. But luckily, when I am stuck, like I was with the Four of Wands, just kind of stuck on how to move forward with the next set of cards, I'll have cards like the Four of Wands where I can kind of spend my time on it, relax into it, just kind of enjoy the process of that. And then it's like magic, like clockwork. Inspiration comes and hits again, right? So this is that kind of project for me. It's very much a spiritual experience. And a lot of it explores my own spiritual sort of journey. That's just part of the, par for the course, right? So I always say that this is a 78-piece self-portrait. There's deliberetely parts of me all throughout this thing, right? On purpose, right? Because for me, this is very much, it's kind of like a journal. It's very therapeutic. It is a way for me to explore the cards deeper than I have previously, so that I can sort of apply whatever lessons that I'm sort of learning at the time to the cards that I'm creating. So I enjoy it. Right? It is the perfect mashup of like just spiritual work and self-exploration and creativity that I get to sort of put into one project. And I don't know if any of that makes sense, but that is very much what it is like working on the Cosmic Gateways Tarot for me. I enjoy it. It's not, I know that sometimes people kind of get into tarot, creating the decks specifically, because it is a very lucrative business to be in, because most people who purchase tarot decks own more than one. I am one such person. I have a collection of I got about 20 or so. It may be more than that at this point, but I got about 20 or so decks. I collect them because I enjoy the medium, but I also just really enjoy the artwork, right? So I enjoy purchasing from other artists who are creating their own decks. I do find that commercial decks feel a lot stiffer than indie decks. They feel a little more sterilized. So I don't own very many commercial decks. Or if I do own commercial decks or decks that have been published commercially, they more than likely started off as indie decks and then just went commercial later on. But in terms of like your average commercialized deck, I don't own very, very many of those. Whenever I am looking to purchase a new deck, it's usually from the space of, trying to find an indie representation of the tarot. Right? So that's just kind of where I am with it. And I really enjoy working on this project, and I really, really enjoy being able to show you guys what it takes, because again, I think that burden kind of falls on our shoulders as creators. Now, there's always discourse, and there are always people, or there've been quite a few people out sort of feeling like they shouldn't have to share the process of, or whatever their process is, because their process, there's their process. And especially when it comes to sort of proving their creativity in this AI landscape and proving that the work that they're creating isn't AI. I don't know. I guess because I've always been a fan of the process, to me, I don't even look at it in that way, right? I look at it as a superpower. I'm happy to show you the process, right? If you can replicate it, that's your business. But more likely than not, if you're worried about that kind of thing, showing your process as an artist, there can only be one you, right? So even if you show it, even if you share how you do a certain thing and someone else tries to do that same thing, it may look close to what you've done, but it'll never be exactly what you created. It won't have the same soul, the same backstory, the same motivation, or any of that. It'll feel like a bootleg. So you can't worry too much about showing your process in fear of people sort of stealing it or whatever the case is. There's only one you, and most people don't have the patience to try to do something themselves. It's just the way of the world. So to me, I feel like showing the process is going to be very important, but you kind of have to frame it in a way that you're comfortable with. So for those people who are framing it as, I don't want to show it because my process is their process, fine, it's cool. You don't have to do that, right? If you feel uncomfortable in that regard. But if you change it in a way to say, let me show you my superpower, let me show you what I can do, so that you can value what I do, right? So that we don't have to have these discussions about being upset that an artist is charging you $13,000 to do a tarot deck. You understand why, right? You understand why they're charging that much. Again, for me, $13,000 ain't even in the ballpark. we just, it's not even it, right? It's not even close to how much I would charge for that particular service for someone else. But again, sharing the process kind of helps justify that. If I can show you that each one of these brushstrokes on this page is being done by hand, right? And I have to do this 78 times, then you kind of get a better understanding as to why it costs what it costs. So that's me. I'm team process. Of course, I have also been creating process videos since 2013. So I'm, I guess, slightly biased in that respect because it is something that I've shared for a very long time. But I did it because I enjoyed watching it. Right? So even then, it wasn't even so much a superpower. It was really for me to create something that I can watch back. Right? And then I found my people. I've went through my subscriber list recently for the ones that I can see. I have people who are still subscribed to this channel from way back when. So if you're still here and you're still watching it, first of all, thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys for being here. And for those of you who have been keeping up with me for that long, you can attest to the fact that there was a time where I would show the process, but I wouldn't necessarily talk about the process. And then slowly but surely, I started to talk about the process. And now we're at a point where I'm not only showing it to you, but I'm talking you through it as we go, right? All right, so again, I'm working on these spheres. I'm also not trying to be perfect because this is a very small, minute part of the picture. We have a whole lot more to show on this particular image, but I am sort of adding in highlights and shadows and shine and all of that. So this reads exactly the way I want it to read without being perfect. Again, I'm kind of leaving it up to interpretation at this point. Getting close enough to the reference, meaning the sphere that I'm working on, but I ain't really necessarily concerned too much about making it absolutely perfect. That's not important to me at this time. So I just want to make sure that I have these things in as good as I can get them, right? As good as I'm comfortable with, and then we'll move forward. So I think probably today after I finish, I'll continue to work on the background so that we can move on and get to these next couple of cards. So yeah, I think two at a time is super helpful because again, I get to divide my attention. So that Wednesdays, on the day that I know for sure that I get a lot more work done, I can work on some of the more complicated images. And on Sundays where I'm doing a lot more talking, right, I can work on the ones that are a little bit less complicated, right? So that we're sort of double teaming and tackling this thing at all at once. So yeah, what I say, I got 36 cards left to do. So I'm excited. We're getting sort of to that end, to that, or at least to the end of the images anyway. I still have to complete the book, and I still have to design the packaging and do like the book layout and get it edited and all of that. But we're getting close, right? We're getting really close. I say my goal is 15 cards, so we're going to see if I can get them 15 cards done. I believe in myself. Again, the most I've done in a year was 14, so I know for sure I can get 15. And I wasn't nearly as organized at the time that I did the 14 cards. I was working primarily in the major arcana. So again, those archetype cards, the devil, the lovers, all of those, right? Those were done 2021. I think the devil was 2020, but you know, those are the cards that I was working on. And then I moved into the minors, moving around, skipping around. I wasn't doing anything in order at all. I just kind of did whatever I felt like doing. Right? But I was nowhere near as organized as I am now. A lot of that just kind of, again, came with trial and error and finding what worked best for me. And then making the adjustments so that I can then move forward. So again, if you are trying to do a goal, allow yourself time to kind of find out what works for you. You can start with the stuff that you learn online, you know what I mean? You can start there, but I wouldn't hold myself too strictly to the things that you see online. Just allow yourself to kind of see what works for you, right? Because what works for me may not work for you. For you, you may even work faster than I do, you know, and whatever your goal is, you may get there a lot faster. You may have more time. You know, you may have more help. You may have people who are going to sort of help you through it and kind of get you to where you need to be. And that's perfectly great. Use all the resources that you can get. But it's just sort of allow yourself time to figure yourself out, figure out what is going to work for you and what is not. And then just be patient with the process and move forward. Every day is a new opportunity to do something new. Every day is a new opportunity to accomplish something, even if it's just sort of researching the thing that you're trying to get into, or meeting new people, or reading articles, or watching videos, or whatever the case is. Just be patient with yourself and be patient with your process, because everyone's journey is their own. Everyone's journey is uniquely theirs, right? So we want to make sure that you realize that you know you have patience with yourself as you sort of walk the walk. I've been mentioning this a lot just because I found it so fascinating when I learned about it. With Frankenstein and Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. They said that was something that he wanted to do since he was 11 years old, and he was able to do it in his 60s, right? So just sometimes you have to take a side step just to sort of figure out life and get things going the way they need to go. Sometimes you have to do what you have to do in order to afford to do what you want to do. But the key is to keep going, even if it's small progress. Even if it feels like or seems like it's not very significant or any of that, all of that stuff that you can get done and to sort of work towards your goal, and it'll multiply. Those efforts will multiply, and they will add to the cause, right? So that's where we are. This is my main goal. Now I do have some sort of ambitions for what to do after I've published this deck that'll go along with it. So maybe I'll create my own sort of Cosmic Gateways universe. But we'll get to that in due time. Right? I'm really excited. So I always think sort of forward in terms of what could be, despite whatever my life is looking like at that moment. I try to sort of keep my mind on, this is the possibility. Let's try for it, right? Well, all else fails, it won't work, but at least we'll try. So there are a few things that I want to do in relation to the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. So I'm really excited. Some of that I've already started, right? So I'm really excited to kind of cue you in or show you guys what's going on that front. But this is a project that I think is really, really special to me. Again, it took me so long to get to the point where I was just starting the doggone thing, right? So I want you guys to sort of use this as motivation to, do whatever it is that you want to do. And then if you want to come on here and talk to me about it, I would love to have you. We have not had a guest on the live stream in a long time. And part of that is on me because I haven't been actively looking for people to come on the live stream with me. But maybe we'll do that again. There are a couple people that I have really wanted to interview. So maybe we'll do that one day. Get some folks on here to talk to us about whatever their specialty is. But I love being able to do that. So if you're curious and would like to know what my interview process is, I've done one official interview in terms of me being the interviewer. And I've had a couple of guests come on, Sam and Lee, who are viewers of this channel. We've had them come on and do some group work together as I kind of explain a little bit of the artistic process. But generally when I'm interviewing someone, what I will do is I will actually send out a list of questions based on what I, know of you and would like to learn from you and all of that. And then you can tell me yay or nay, I don't want to talk about this, or yet I'm not comfortable in this respect, like a good old interviewer, right? And then from there, we set up a date and a time, and then we just go at it, right? We not go at it, but we will talk, right? So if you would like to, if you have a project that you have published or are thinking about publishing or on the verge of publishing, and you would like to share that with our audience, we're small, but we are mighty, right? We're a small audience, but we're a strong audience, and I love having each and every one of you guys here. And so if you would like to come on and share with me and with us what you got going on in your life, I would love to have you on. So that let's call it an open invitation. So how do you reach out? Now there's some links in the description. I think one of those will take you to my website. You can contact me directly there. You can DM me at on Instagram. I'll usually get it. Facebook I'm real slow about so I may or may not see it on Facebook, but you can reach out there. I'll see it at some point, but you can DM me on Instagram. Is probably the easiest way to DM me. But another way that you can contact me is just through email. If you go to my channel and go to the about, I believe my email address is listed there, or you can just go to my website and fill out the contact form. And that is a good way for you to reach out to me as well. But if you would like to talk and come on here and stream with me, I would love to have you. Especially if you're an artist. Let's draw together. Can we do that? I wonder if I can figure out a way for us to draw and share our screens so that people can kind of see what it is that we're doing, right? If you're brave and would like to do that with me, I would love to have you. I would love to have you. That'd be a whole lot of fun. Let's see what else. So let's go back to what I'm doing now. I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. Again, I can go overboard sometimes with details. I think that last card is definitely a testament to that. And for those of you who've not seen it yet, I think I posted it on Instagram, Threads, and all the meta stuff. So Instagram, Threads, and Facebook. I don't think that I've posted the finished item here on YouTube, or I know I haven't made a reel of it yet. But if you would like to see that card, that one again took about 70 hours to complete. 70. And I calculated, and that's may even be a conservative estimate, because here's the thing. I calculated I didn't work on it very much outside of the live streams. So I know for sure on Wednesdays I worked on it straight through, sometimes 2 and 3 hours at a time. That was on the Bring Your Own Project lives. I also added to that the Paint With Me lives. Now, the trick with the Paint With Me lives is sometimes I work straight through those, and sometimes I'm talking more than I'm working. So I had to kind of give and take some of that, time. And then I know for sure around December 28th or 29th, I worked from December 28th to January 2nd straight through, right, to complete it. So I know that was at least 8 hours or so per day to do that. I was just here glued in, plugged in, trying to get that thing done, because my goal was to actually have it done before the first, so that it'd be the last car of 2025. And then when we got into 2026, I would have a new set of cars, but I ended up finishing on the second. So very conservative estimate of 70 hours, and that is taking into account all of the recorded history that I have working on it, plus the 4 or 5 days or so that I worked on it at home without recording or any of that. Now, if I had actually been able to save the time-lapse video of that through Clip Studio, I think I would have a better idea of how much time was spent. But again, about 70 hours or so is a pretty safe estimate for how much time it took me to complete that card. So that was a lot of fun. It was very relaxing. It had gotten to a point where it was extremely relaxing, especially when I started working on the top of the image, which was like the red canopy. That was like putting together a puzzle piece, or like paint by numbers, because that aspect of the image I actually traced. So I was just tracing the shapes, and then I went back on top of it and painted what I saw. So that was nice. It was like very much like I would have this finger on my screen where the reference is, and I'd be drawing with this finger trying to trace exactly where not trace, but like, follow exactly where I was in that aspect of it. So that was very much a labor of love. It was very nice, and it was a very nice break. But now it's time for me to get on back to the regular flow, regular schedule of things. So again, I'm really happy and excited to be in these 5s, and I don't foresee these 2 taking very long at all. I really don't. I think the most of it is going to be in like this kind of detailing, but again, because the objects are have room for abstraction, I don't necessarily have to be super exact in this. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm very proud of myself and how far I've come. Very proud of myself again, and not sort of quitting and staying the course. And I'm very happy with the fact again that I have not gotten tired of this project yet. I think that says a lot about how much I love it. You know what I mean? And how much it actually is a dream to have done. I think this particular project is going to be just huge for me, just to have accomplished it, right? Just to have gotten to the place where I have something concrete and tangible that people can use and enjoy and review, and like, you know what I mean? Just have at, right? And really, really have a good time using. I'm always flattered and sort of humbled when you guys express that you are enjoying this project and looking forward to the project, and you can kind of see the amount of love that goes into it. That's always a very humbling conversation to have, and it always makes my heart smile. And I feel like I always get those messages right when I need them. Right? It's like the universe is like, hold on, friend, calm down. Look what they said. Right? So I'll get really sweet messages from you guys who have been watching this for so long. So I'm very, very excited. Just like I said, happy to be able to show you the process, because it can seem like it can be very easy to underestimate the amount of work that again goes into a tarot deck. And I remember having a conversation with someone. They were like, well, why is it taking you so long? It's like, man, listen, between the research, you know what I mean, that goes into each card, between sort of the time it takes to paint and create. Now, I'm relatively fast with some aspects of creation, like people. I tend to get people done extremely fast, faces and things like that. They don't take very long. But when it comes to like putting together an actual scene, it takes time, right? That takes time, and making sure I'm not just slapping together something just because I need to get it done. Like I create the rules, right? So I have to remember that sometimes I'm the master of my own situation. And so if it takes a while, it's just going to take a while. You know what I mean? I just have to be patient with myself. And I appreciate you guys who have been with me for a while on this project, being patient with me. It's going to be worth it. I don't foresee it being any other way. It is definitely going to be worth it. And I think that it is going to be so exciting again to see you guys use and enjoy this product. because it is a product, right? Use and enjoy this product and sort of see what you guys get out of these images, because I'm putting a lot of love in them, right? Putting a lot of love, putting a lot of thought. And again, it's very much reflective. A lot of them are very reflective of my own experiences. And I know that I'm not an anomaly. I think sometimes in the spiritual space, you'll see a lot of like the egoic thinking, like we're chosen ones and all of that. No, you're not. You know what I mean? You just woke up at a certain time. And in that waking up, you have access to certain ways of thinking and certain perspectives and all of that. So I think it's easy to kind of get caught up in that aspect of it, but I'm just flattered to be able to connect to people who resonate with this particular project, and I welcome you all. I'm glad to have you here. And again, whether you're watching this particular live stream live or the replay, I really, really appreciate you all for being here and walking this walk with me, right? And I hope that it inspires you to dive into your dreams and to do something that you've thought about doing since you was in middle school or this morning when you woke up, right? Or whatever you decided that you wanted to try something new or do something new. I hope that seeing me sort of go through this process of creating a dream project motivates you to do the same. Because what is the world without dreamers, right? And we have to kind of put action to those plans and sort of stop procrastinating and stop overthinking the situations and stop moving in fear, and use that fear. If you're afraid, do it afraid, right? Do it until you're comfortable with it. Do it until you don't care anymore about whatever you thought was going to hold you up or whatever was stopping you from moving forward. And you're just moving forward because you know that it's the best course of action. And if you don't move forward, it's not going to get done, right? So you have to kind of do that. Being honest with yourself and being honest with whatever needs you have in order to move forward successfully and to create your goals and to accomplish your goals successfully. Do that. Sometimes we can get ashamed with our flaws and ashamed with, that need for help or the need for assistance or the need for information or not knowing certain things and not knowing how to move forward. Sometimes we can get a little bit ashamed of that. Ignorance, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with not knowing, right? But in that, you have access to the world, and you have access to people who have the answers or who have had similar experiences that may be willing to help you, but you have to sort of articulate the fact that you need help, right? Because the people around you are not going to read your mind. The people online are not going to read your mind, right? So ask for help when you need it, because closed mouths don't get fed, right? They don't. Don't nobody know what you got going on. Everybody got something going on. So you have to do that sometimes as well. Just kind of challenge yourself to move forward as best you can within your own strengths. Work on your weaknesses and then stay the course. That's it, right? It's all about persistence, especially in your well, I ain't gonna say especially in your 40s. It really doesn't matter how old you are, right? But sometimes we get to a certain age and we feel like we're at a certain age and we can't start over, and or we're afraid to start over. That happens a whole lot. Or we're afraid to learn new skills, or we feel like we're too old to learn, and we get in our heads about a whole lot of things, right? It doesn't matter. If you want to do something, do it. Don't get to be an old man or an old woman or old they, them, or, whatever your pronoun or gender classification is. Don't wait till you get to be an elder to feel like, dang, I spent all of my life worrying about what other people would think or worrying about not being worthy of, and you're all angry and resentful because you spent your life not trying, right? Just try. It ain't gonna hurt you. You know what I mean? Or if it do hurt, you'll grow from it. You'll get better and be better, right? So that's kind of how they have to approach it. And again, nobody really knows exactly what they're doing. We all just kind of figuring this thing out. But you have just as much opportunity to figure it out, now, and try to figure it out and try new things and try to learn new things as the next person. The people that we see that are famous just bet on themselves earlier. That's all. You know what I mean? They're no different than you, no more special than you are, no less special than you are. They just bet on themselves early, right? So you have to kind of bet on yourself no matter what age and stage you are in life. All right. So what am I doing here? Again, I'm just laying down color, right? Some of this has to be blurred out. I may or may not worry about that. I may just kind of smudge it out a little bit to create that blur effect, because in our image, some aspects of this is in focus and some is not. I don't know if I'm gonna worry about that so much yet. We'll just kind of see how it comes together, and then if I feel like I can, lean into that, or if it's important to the scene, then we will. If not, I ain't gonna worry about it. We got a bunch of other aspects of this illustration to work on, so I'm not, again, reaching so much for perfection just yet. I can always come back and tweak and make adjustments and duplicate things just to experiment and try out stuff, and then go from there. So I would love to hear about your dreams, right? I would love to hear that you guys are trying new things, and not just for the sake of you thinking it's gonna make me happy, right? I want you to do it for you, because it's your journey, right? I don't it's not for me to say what you should or shouldn't study, or what you should and shouldn't learn, or what you should and shouldn't accomplish, right? It's nobody's space to tell you that. I don't care how old you are, whether you're a teenager or whether you're an old woman, whether you're somebody's mom or somebody's dad, right? It's not anyone else's place to say what you should or should not accomplish. You have to make that decision for yourself. So do it for yourself, and I would love to learn what it is that you're doing for yourself, right? So that you can get and be better. All right, so it looks like it's going to auto save, and it's not going to take long, but in the meantime, in between time, I am going to show you guys what the Cosmic Gateways Tarot look like, and then we'll probably wrap it up from here. So if you're watching this vertically, it may not come through it's clear. I don't know what part of this you can see, but if you are watching this vertically, I would suggest hopping on my channel and watching it like at the full size or full capacity. I believe you could click on my face and it'll take you to the live stream. If not, I don't know, y'all had to tell me how that works in the shorts field. But this is pretty much the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. Now, this is not all of the cards. This is maybe 30 of them. Again, I have 42 cards complete, so I have 36 left to do. I'm super excited. Of the majors, I am almost done, except for 4 cards. I do have the Sun, the Moon, the Star, and the Chariot left to do, and it's probably going to be a while before I even get to those. In the Minor Arcana cards, we're currently working on the 5s. So beyond the 5s, I have the aces, the kings, the 6s, 7s, 8s, and 9s left. 9s and 10s. So I have the 10s as well left to do. So as I was sort of developing these cards with the 5s specifically, I challenged myself to figure out a way to, do this without having to draw like 5 people or whatever the case is for certain ones. Even though I still had to with the 5 of Wands, that was definitely something I wanted to avoid. But I am glad I had gotten to the image that I've gotten to. So that is one that we'll be working on Wednesdays. That is the 5 of Wands, and today, of course, we're working on the 5 of Cups. I don't think either of those are going to take me very long. Again, the last card took me about 70 hours. They don't all take that long. Some of them I get done eerily fast, right? So some I can finish in like 2 or 3 live streams over like maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours per stream, so like 6 hours total per card. That is the average, right? 5 to 6 hours a card. Some of them go way longer, some of them do not, so maybe 10 or so at the most of like the lower end of the averages. But again, some of them take a very long time, and I'm glad. I think that gives me a bit of visual diversity, right? So some of the cards are very detailed, some of them are not, and I think that helps me out a whole lot. Some of them I would actually like to revisit at a certain point. So of course I have been working on this so long, since 2019 or late 2019, to the point where I have personally grown a lot over the last 6 years as an artist. Now again, primarily I've been working on this project. I've had other projects, of course, over the last 6 years where I've worked on other things and other motifs and other types of images and things like that, but I can kind of see the growth, right? I can kind of see how I have changed as an artist from my very first card to the last card. So I have to make sure that I am consistent in some ways, but for some of them, like the hanging one, which is the hangman for this card, I know that that is one that I would like to go back and adjust. It's really her legs, right? I think the Knight of Pentacles was one I wanted to go back and adjust, and I actually did. The Page of Cups I wanted to. I'm not sure if I'm going to just leave that one alone. I don't feel as strongly about needing to change it as some of the others. But for sure, the Knight of Pentacles was one that was really bothering me. The hanging one, I could probably I just need to fix her legs, right? I just need her legs to look like they're wrapping around the pole that she's hanging on, as opposed to just kind of sitting on it. So that's one of the couple. I'm looking at the 3 of Wands on the screen now. Maybe, you know what I mean? And only with the 3 of Wands, the only thing I would probably do is extend the size of the wand that our character is holding. So I'll probably make it as tall as the two that she's standing next to, or at least as thick as those two. Other than that, I'm pretty happy with the way that they've turned out. I can kind of see again the growth in the images. I'm certainly pushing myself with these minor arcana cards to explore visual storytelling, to be very deliberate about the story that I am telling in these cards. I'm always very deliberate about the symbolism and things like that since day one. Even with the very first card, which is the High Priestess, it started as the Chariot. So once it sort of morphed into the High Priestess, I was still very deliberate about the symbols that I wanted to include in those cards and the look of the cards themselves. So again, I have about 36 cards left to do. Working on the 5s now. So after these 5s are completed, we'll just go in sequence and get the 6s done, and then I will need to develop the next 8, which will be the 7s and the 8s. I keep saying 8ths, like 1/8, but in the 8s. So once I develop those will be, I think, 16 cards if I can complete all of those this year. So that'll be close to the halfway of what I need to get done. If I can get 18, that'll be all the better, right? And again, I think that doing these 2 at a time has certainly helped out a whole lot. So I'm going to call it a stream here. I'm going to show you what all I did. Well, this is pretty much what I did. But before we did this, what I did in the background was I sort of widened the bookshelves. Got those looking a little bit wider because the one in the middle, which is where the number is going to go, is wider, and the others just didn't match. They were all different widths, and because I was drawing this in a hurry, right? I have all of my symbols, so we'll work on doing the background first. Once I get the background done, then I'll work my way forward. With the cups, I don't have to draw them again because I have them in the 2 of cups. I'll show you guys what that looks like. Let's see if it'll open up for us just to get an idea of what the cup looks like once it's completed. And then after that, we'll call it a stream. So I thank all of you guys for being here, whether you're stopping in for a hot second, whether you're watching this through the shorts, or if you're watching this through the traditional sort of live stream setup. I really appreciate you guys for being here. If you like this kind of thing, hit the like button. That helps me out so much. I got 200. I think I got 800 subscribers. So I have 200 left to get to my goal of 1,000. I would love to get there. I had started this channel in 2013 again because I enjoyed watching process videos. So because I enjoyed watching process videos and I was also painting, I would record myself paint. I think the very first painting that I uploaded to this channel was who was it? Sasuke Uchiha or Uchiha Sasuke, depending on whether you watch dubs or subs. So Sasuke Uchiha and his Susanoo, and that was a painting that I did for a family friend of ours, and that was the very first one that I did. I remember at that time, like, copyright music and stuff wasn't a thing, so I had music from Naruto, and then I later changed it, and from there I would do a couple of still lives and things like that. So that, I was holding myself to painting, and then it got to a painting a day. I was doing a painting a day with acrylics, and then I slowed down because I got burned out. You know what I mean? So this channel has gone through quite a bit of up and down, ebb and flow. But I'm happy to still be here. I'm happy to still be very active. So if you've been here that long, man, I appreciate you for being here. Let me know. I would love to know if some of the OG subscribers are still here and watching. And for those of you who are joining, whether you've watched me now for a week or you watched me for a few years, I do appreciate you all for being here. So this is the 2 of Cups. Now this is another one that I am debating changing, because of all of the number cards, this one does not have 2 cups, right? So every other card that's a numbered card in the minor arcana cards has whatever the number is, number of items, right? So the 2 of Pentacles has 2 Pentacles, 2 of Wands has 2 Wands, the 5 of Cups has 5 cups, and so on and so forth. This one in particular, I don't know why it just did not, it didn't register to me at the time. This was the first one that I had done coming back into working like full time on the Cosmic Gateways Tarot since 2023. Of course, I had only completed 1 card at that time. So I was jumping back in, kind of like I did when I started this project, right? Where I didn't necessarily, like, I had a plan, I had an image in my mind, but that was one detail that just kind of I overlooked. So I am not sure yet if I want to redesign this card or if I want to leave it be. But I wanted to show you guys the cup because this is the cup that I am using in the 5 of Cups. So I do not have to redraw this at all. I'll probably maybe fix some of the lighting, because as I lay these cups about in my scene, the lighting may very well change. I'm not real sure. I don't know, but I don't have to draw it, so that saves me a whole bunch of time. I'm really happy to have that beautiful cup that I spent quite a bit of time on getting it looking the way that I wanted it to look. So I'll zoom in so you guys can kind of see what that looks like. So in this image, yeah, it's nice. I did like the metal detail, and of course I used the smudge brush as well as the chalk brush to give me that texture of like a goblet. So I'll bring those over into the 5 of Cups, and I do that from time to time. I'll bring elements in from other images so that I don't have to draw them again. For instance, I have this Buddha head here behind our counter, and I feel like there needs to be greenery, and that may be because my reference has greenery. I'm not gonna redraw no leaves. I just spent 4 months drawing leaves. I'm gonna go and probably grab some from a image that has leaves in it. Very likely it's going to be the Queen of Pentacles, because it's a lot of like individual plants that I can kind of grab and stick in here. So I'll probably do that, and then we'll just kind of go from there. So I'm really excited with the way that this is coming out. I am going to end it here in just a bit, but today I'm going to go ahead and finish up this after I take a small break and give my eyes a rest from the screen. I'm going to finish up this sphere. I may work on some other elements of this background, so that when we come back next Sunday, we're just sort of rocking and rolling, right? We're moving forward and getting this thing done so I can move on to the next card. So if you like a little more chill live stream on Wednesdays, I stream at 12:45 or so Central. Usually it's between 12:45 and 1. I usually schedule it for 12:45, but we'll be working on the 5 of Wands. And for those of you who missed it last Wednesday, the 5 of Wands features 5 figures sort of pulling they each have their own sort of rope, right, or their own cloth. And this is very reminiscent of a reference that I found. I think they were in Malaysia or Indonesia, one of the two. And it was a group of kids who were tied at the waist, and they were pulling like these scarves, right? So it was like a modified tug of war. And I wanted to make this image my own, so I added 2 different figures from a very different reference. Kind of still added the cloth around them so it looks like they're in the same setting. And so all I have left to do with this before we get into adding flats is I actually need to add faces, of course. I have to give the characters faces and hair, and I have not yet decided if I want to change the outfits or if I want to leave them the same. I do know that I want to make sure everyone's still barefoot, so we're going to keep it that way. But we'll be back on this particular card on Wednesday. So again, if you're watching this live or replay, I thank you so much for being here. Please be sure to hit the thumbs up. And if you have not yet subscribed, be sure to subscribe. And until next time, I hope you guys have a happy, creative, and prosperous week. Peace.